and not outside it.
Now to the meeting itself with between Obama and Netanyahu. It reminded me actually of a Jesse Jackson expression from years ago when he'd said that it's important not to, in the process of exciting one side, to incite the other side. This seems to be one of those occasions where I've been reading the commentary on the Arab side and getting emails and even SMSs from people, some saying, I wish George Bush were back, at least we knew what to expect. There's a bit of whiplash here. Your take on how this meeting will be perceived and what the next step can be for the United States, given that there was tough, make nice, and now we're in a make nice mode.
Make nice, yes. Actually, the reaction is already very clear among the Palestinians as a whole. I've seen it, I've read it, and of course in the Arab world there is a sense of tremendous letdown, and that the American president has in many ways accepted the Netanyahu premises and approach. Netanyahu is notorious for getting people involved in side issues, technical issues, talks forever, and then creating time and space to create on the ground, to impose on the ground unilateral measures, and a reality that totally negates any kind of talks. And this is precisely what he's doing. First, he got George Mitchell into this whole issue of what's a settlement, what's not a settlement, and public buildings or not, infrastructure or not, institutions or not, and already given contracts and so on, to the point where the so-called settlement freeze meant more settlement building than before. And for a whole year and even longer now, George Mitchell got involved in that, as opposed to saying all settlement activities have to stop, particularly in Jerusalem, that's it for whatever reason, full stop. No. So he got them, he drew them into this. And now he's saying he's willing to talk about settlements. So let's have direct negotiations. I'm willing to talk. Now, of course, everybody's willing to talk. He's been willing to talk forever, and he can talk forever. But the question is, what is he doing on the ground? This is the real issue. And we understand there are domestic constraints and needs. We understand the issue of elections. We understand the issue of needing to send a positive message to Israel and addressing the Israeli public as well as addressing the American public and so on for a variety of reasons. But as you said, you do not excite one side and incite the other. That's why we really need to know that in these meetings, it's not a question of CBMs and gestures and so on, or confidence-building measures, which are things that they should have done in accordance with the first phase of the roadmap. But what we need are concrete steps to show willingness to comply, to end settlement activities of all types, including Jerusalem, and of course to move rapidly within a specified time frame, and to resume where negotiations left off.
President Abbas made those conditions clear for a return to direct talks. He wanted to go back to where the talks left off with Olmert. He wanted a total freeze on settlements, and he wanted a commitment on borders, including the issue of how Jerusalem was going to be configured. The President Obama has been very clear on wanting direct talks to start. I am reminded of last September at the UN, when the president brought the parties together and caused a tremendous problem for the Palestinian president. Are we back there again? I mean, is this a limb that President Abbas can climb back from? I mean, he's out there. And it's hard, isn't it? I mean, where does he go?
It's very difficult. I just talked to President Abbas, and I was just in a meeting with Hillary Clinton. The situation is extremely critical. Palestinian public opinion is highly inflamed, and it's very intelligent, very well informed, and very critical. And the Palestinian people cannot be deceived, and they know what's happening. And therefore their position is not just an emotional reaction, it's a well thought out position saying we've talked forever and they've built settlements forever. We negotiated in good faith, and what they did was negate negotiations and destroy the two-state solution on the ground. So the question is one of urgency and one of intervention to curb Israeli behavior. It's not a question of just talks. That's the problem. The whole emphasis has been on talks, on negotiations, indirect, direct, proximity, long distance, whatever. That's not the issue. It's not talks. they said, well, if you talk, then this is one way of giving us leverage or giving yourself leverage of trying to stop settlements. I said, that reminds me of Secretary Baker. When we said, we're not going to Madrid, how can we go if there are settlement activities? This is the only way to stop settlement activities is to start negotiations. Mm-hmm. Well, we've started for 2 decades, we've negotiated. That's the problem. And they've used this time, exploited this time to build facts on the ground.
So you don't think that President Abbas can come back to direct negotiations without getting these
negotiations are not an objective.
Okay.
This is something. It seems to me
if President Obama insists,
they deal with negotiations as an objective. Yeah. And Netanyahu wants negotiations by saying, we want to talk. So he can get a free pass by saying, we're talking. So don't hold me accountable, don't take me to the Security Council, don't take me to the International Criminal Court, don't talk about our war crimes, don't take me to the International Court of Justice, and so on, because we are talking, don't rock the boat. This is what happened the last 20 years. Israel avoided accountability, avoided intervention, avoided any kind of legal or judicial pursuits by saying, we're talking.
But if President Obama pushes...
And acted on the ground. Now, President Obama has to understand you can push too far. You can really push people over the edge. They pay attention to Israeli democracy and public opinion and coalition requirements, blah, blah, blah. But they do not pay attention to the fact that the Palestinians have a very vibrant and active democracy and a very active and outspoken public opinion. And they have to understand President Abbas does not have a free hand to just take unilateral, single decisions like that in a vacuum. And this they have to understand. You keep pushing one person. I said, don't make the PLO and the national leadership commit political suicide. You cannot push them beyond their abilities and to lose their credibility with their own constituency. So if you need a leadership with credibility, with the ability to deliver, you cannot undermine them with their own constituency. Abu Mazen has been extremely flexible, understanding. He has cooperated with the Americans, particularly on issues of incitement, on issues of public order, security, and so on. And he's fulfilled all obligations as per the roadmap, even doing things that are not very popular with the people. And he's very serious about fulfilling his obligations and the obligations of the Palestinians as per the roadmap. Israel has not fulfilled anything, and yet all we get is go back to talks, direct talks. So it's not just a verbal exercise or an exercise in political ingenuity. It is really dealing with realities. If you do not curb Israeli behavior, you will not have anything to talk about. If you negate one leader, he will not be able to deliver anyway.
Thank you so much for joining us and bringing some clarity to what is, I think, a very confusing situation and disturbing for many people in our community.
It's wonderful to see you again.
We'll be back in just a moment. Stay tuned.